It is 9:55 a.m. Eastern on February 17th, and you are looking at a live view of the Falcon 9 as it awaits its targeted 10:05 a.m. Eastern Time launch from Cape Canaveral Air Force Station in Florida. Happy Monday from SpaceX headquarters in Hawthorne, California. My name is Lauren Lyons, and I'm an engineer on the Starlink team here at SpaceX, and welcome to our live webcast of our 5th Starlink mission. Today's mission will be the 4th flight of the booster that you see on your screen. Most recently, it flew back on December 16th, which represents our quickest booster turnaround to date. And if this launch goes as planned, it will mark SpaceX's 80th successful launch and 50th successful landing. On top of that, we will again be attempting to catch both fairing halves with our recovery vessels, Miss Tree and Miss Chief. Now, we've got a shorter mission duration today, so we won't see those views live on the webcast, but we'll push out an update one way or another after the fairing has made its way back to Earth. We are continuing to count down to liftoff, but if for some reason we have to call a hold on today's launch, we do have a backup opportunity tomorrow, Tuesday, February 18th at 9:42 a.m. Eastern. But at this time, all systems are go for an on-time liftoff.
My name is Jesse Anderson, and I'm a lead manufacturing engineer here at SpaceX. As Lauren mentioned, today's mission will be shorter than previous Starlink missions, and that's because we are executing a direct inject of the Starlink satellites into an elliptical or oval-shaped orbit. In prior Starlink missions, we deployed the satellites into a 290-kilometer circular orbit, which required 2 burns of the Merlin vacuum engine on the second stage. Keep in mind the stack of 60 Starlink satellites combined is one of the heaviest payloads we fly, so putting them directly into this orbit requires more vehicle performance and makes recovery more challenging. Going forward, and starting with today, we will deploy the satellites shortly after the first burn of the second stage, putting the Starlink satellites into an elliptical orbit. Once checkouts are complete, the satellites will then use their onboard ion thrusters to move into their intended orbits, an operational altitude of 550 kilometers. With this change, our webcast runtime will be a little bit shorter. We'll wrap up just after deployment at T plus 15 minutes or so. The Falcon 9 that you see on the pad there has been loading propellants since T minus 35 minutes, and as a reminder, we use a rocket-grade kerosene, or RP1, and super chilled liquid oxygen, or LOX, to power the Falcon 9. Currently, our RP1 is nearly fully loaded on the first stage, which is the bottom 2/3 of the vehicle that you see there on your screen, and that top 1/3 is our second stage, and at this time, the second stage is fully fueled with RP1. LOX loading is underway on both stages and will continue to be topped off right until the last minute of the countdown. The stack of 60 satellites is safely enclosed inside of the 17-foot diameter payload fairing, and there you can see on your screen is the flat stacked satellites. There is the fairing at the top of the vehicle, that pointed enclosure there. And once we reach the vacuum of space, we will deploy the fairing as the second stage continues on its way to its final orbit. As for weather, we had some rough weather over the weekend, but so far today, weather is looking good for an on-time launch. We will continue to monitor this all the way down to T-0. The Air Force range is prepared to support today's mission. So with that, the vehicle, satellites, weather, and range are all looking good for an on-time liftoff just a few minutes from now.
As I mentioned at the top of the webcast, today's launch will be the 4th flight of this particular Falcon 9 booster. This booster previously flew on a Dragon resupply mission, CRS-17, which flew to the space station in May of 2019, followed by CRS-18 in July 2019, and most recently a commercial satellite launch on December 17th, 2019. It's been just under 8 weeks since that booster returned, which makes this our fastest turnaround to date. Long term, we hope to continue to drive that turnaround time down even further, with rocket launches looking more similar to commercial air travel, where the planes get basic checkouts, they get refueled, and then they head right back out. SpaceX successfully landed its first booster back in December 2015 after a long series of attempts with various endings, some more spectacular than others. And if we land today's booster, it will mark our 50th successful landing. It's really crazy to think just how much has changed in only 5 years. Our drone ship, Of Course I Still Love You, is currently stationed 350 miles off the coast of Florida, waiting for what will be the 4th landing of this booster. Just as we had to work through a lot of trial and error with booster recovery, we're now engaging in that same process for fairing recovery. To date, we have caught 3 fairing halves with our recovery vessels and fished a number of others out of the water, and we'll continue pushing forward with this effort with the goal of hopefully making this as routine as our rocket landings.
We are currently just over 4 minutes from liftoff. Falcon 9 is now moving into the final stages of the countdown. At T-minus 7 minutes, engine chill began. This is where we allow a small amount of the super chilled liquid oxygen to flow into the Merlin engine turbo pumps prior to the full flow of liquid oxygen into the vehicle, and that's to avoid any shocks to the system. Liquid oxygen is also what's creating those white clouds around Falcon 9, as you can see on your screen. We continue to load super chilled liquid oxygen, or LOX, into the stage until just before liftoff. And when that super chilled LOX comes in contact with the ambient air around it, it creates those clouds surrounding the vehicle that you can see right there. At T-minus 3.5 minutes, the transporter Rector has already moved away from the rocket slightly, and this allows some clearance for Falcon 9 to lift off of our launch pad. The first and second stages are both nearly fully loaded with 1 million pounds of kerosene fuel and liquid oxygen. First stage should finish prop loading at T-minus 3 minutes, and second stage at T-minus 2 minutes. At T-minus 60 seconds, be sure to listen in for the call out that Falcon 9 is in startup. This means that the rocket's autonomous internal flight computers have taken over the launch countdown. The Starlink payload continues to be healthy. The Falcon 9 team is tracking no issues on the rocket. Weather is looking good, and the range is green for launch. So let's listen into the last few minutes of the countdown.
Stage 2 rocket goes down. Falcon 9 from startup.
LD is go for launch.
T-minus 30 seconds. T-minus 15 seconds. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. 0. Ignition. Liftoff.
Falcon 9's pitching down range. Power and telemetry nominal.
It is T plus 47 seconds, and we have just had liftoff of our Falcon 9 vehicle, taking our Starlink payload to its targeted orbit. In about 15 seconds or so, we will be passing through max Q. Max Q is the maximum aerodynamic pressure that the vehicle will see throughout its
Falcon 9
ascent.
supersonic.
You should hear that call out in about 5 seconds or so.
Falcon 9 is experiencing maximum aerodynamic pressure.
And there's that call out for max Q. Coming up next in about a minute will be 3 events happening in rapid succession. The first of which will be MECO, or main engine cutoff, followed immediately by stage separation, and this is where the first stage separates from the second stage, and then followed by SES-1, or second engine start 1.
MVAC engine chill.
And you can see on your screen, this is a nice live view looking aft on the vehicle, so you can see those Merlin engines burning real bright right now with Earth in the background. And we're just about 30 seconds away if you're just now joining us. The next 3 events coming up will be MECO, or main engine cutoff, stage separation, and SES-1, second engine start 1. And as we mentioned, today we will only be having 1 burn of the second stage.
MECO.
Stage separation confirmed.
And there we've just had MECO,
Acquisition
main engine
Bermuda.
cutoff, and stage separation.
MVAC ignition.
And second engine start 1 on your right screen. That engine is starting up and should be turning bright red shortly here. There it is. Now coming up in about 5 seconds, we will have fairing deploy. Should also be able to see this on your screen.
Fairing separation confirmed.
And there is fairing deploy. Now both fairing halves are making their way back to Earth. Let's hope that we can catch both of them today on
Stage
Miss
2 is
Tree
on
and Miss
nominal
Chief.
trajectory.
Okay, stage 2 continues to burn nominally with those 60 Starlink satellites up on top, while stage 1 begins its descent down to the drone ship. So coming up very soon, we're going to have a few events on stage 1. The first is the entry burn. That's coming at up about T plus 6 minutes and 48 seconds or so. That's where 3 of the M1D engines are going to reignite. And what they do is they slow the first stage down as it re-enters the upper part of the Earth's atmosphere. That burn's going to go for about 20 seconds until you hear the call out, stage 1 entry burn end. About a minute and a half after the conclusion of that entry burn will be the landing burn. Now that's where we reignite the center E9 engine on the bottom of Falcon 9 on that first stage. And what that does is then it slows the vehicle down to 0 velocity as those landing legs are deploying and hopefully placing this stage on the drone ship for the 4th time and hopefully marking the 50th successful landing of a Falcon 9 booster. Stage 2 trajectory continues to be nominal. We're hearing that MVAC power is good, and everything is looking really awesome. Stage 2 is burning with more than 210 6,000 pounds of thrust. And the 60 satellites that are on top of that second stage are going to join the previous batches of Starlink satellites already in orbit, further filling in our constellation, which gets us another step closer to providing high-speed, low-latency internet access to people on that beautiful blue planet right there, targeting places where broadband connectivity options like fiber are too expensive or unreliable or even sometimes completely unavailable. We're about 15 seconds away from that entry burn. Hopefully we'll see that plume on the left side of the screen there.
Stage 1 FTS is saved.
Stage 1 entry burn has started.
And as you can see, that entry burn has begun.
Fairing vessels have AOS.
We lost the downlink there just for a second, but hopefully we'll get it right back soon.
And stage 1 entry burn is shut down.
All right, and as you just heard, that entry burn has concluded, and I'm also hearing that it was a pretty good one. So coming up
First
next,
stage LOS expected.
coming up next for stage 1, in just under a minute, is going to be the start of the landing burn. This will be, if successful, the 50th successful landing of a booster, of a Falcon booster, not necessarily a Falcon 9. We've landed boosters for Falcon Heavy as well, and this counts as one of those. Okay, we're a little over 10 seconds away from that landing burn start. Meanwhile, stage 2 continues
Stage
to
2 is
perform
enter
normally.
terminal guidance.
Stage 1 landing burn has started.
All right, let's see what we can see here on the left side of the screen. It's a beautiful day out there.
Landing legs have deployed. MVAC shut down.
Okay, we were
Stage 2
expecting
FTS is saved.
the call out for landing, and we obviously didn't see it there on the drone ship. So let's look back at stage 2.
Newfoundland AOS.
And we clearly did not make the landing this time. However, stage 2, we have confirmed SECO, which is second engine cutoff. Let's listen for the call out of the orbit.
Cape LOS expected.
And we have a good
Nominal orbital
orbit.
insertion of stage 2.
All right, now stage 2 is going to coast in this orbit for a few minutes, and during this time, it'll start to spin along its central axis, which gives the Starlink satellites the momentum that they need to space themselves out over time after they deploy. So we're going to take a really quick break here and then return at T plus 13 minutes and 45 seconds.
expected.
Welcome back to the webcast. For those of you who follow Starlink missions, you know our satellites are flat-packed, so there's no dispenser. So what you'll see at deployment is the satellites all clustered together. Once separated from the second stage, they will slowly disperse from one another, and in the days and weeks that come, deploy their solar array, use their onboard ion propulsion system to raise and circularize their orbit, and start beaming down broadband internet to Starlink engineers to test performance. Once the satellites have been deployed, the second stage will conduct a passivation maneuver and be safely deorbited within months. We should be coming up on that deployment of the Starlink satellites in just a few moments here, in about 15 seconds or so. And we should be able to see that live. What you're looking at is those flat-packed satellites right there on your screen. We lost that live view, but it should be coming back here shortly.
Starlink tension rod separation confirmed.
And as you heard, the tension rod separation has been confirmed. So our payload should be deploying shortly here. And there it goes. Another round of satellites out in space. So with that, that brings our webcast to a close. We had an on-time liftoff this morning, a good stage separation. First stage made its way back to Earth. Unfortunately, we did not land the first stage on our drone ship, but it did make a soft landing on the water right next to the drone ship, so it does look like it might be in one piece. Again, that is our secondary mission, so we will try again next time. Our primary mission is now complete. Our Starlink satellites are in their targeted orbit and will be making their way to their final orbit using their onboard thrusters. So thank you to the 45th Space Wing for range safety and the FAA for licensing today's launch, as well as the FCC.
We'd also like to thank you guys, all of our viewers, for tuning in. You can follow our website and social media platform for updates on Stage 1. You can also follow for updates on the fairing catches and our next missions and milestones. Have a great day, and we'll see you next time.